clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And when you actually think about it, if we don't know what's expected, how can we be confident we're going to get what we want?
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Rob from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Ricky from Thinking Focus.
The question is, what makes clarity so important when managing remotely?
The question is from Thinking Focus, a podcast about how we sometimes get in our own way and what we can do about it.
So that's what we're talking about today, Ricky. The importance of clarity, both for us, for you as a leader, and also for your people at work.
Well, that's a really interesting question, mainly because if you don't have clarity, how do you know what you're working to? How do you know what you're working on? How do you know what's expected when you've finished?
Right.
So without any form of clarity, you could just be doing stuff.
So that's true of all situations at work. But when managing remotely, is there a sort of an added element to this, which makes it even more important?
Yeah, I think there is. I think with remote working, what you really probably need to do is up the frequency. Make sure that there is no room for ambiguity, because depending on your touch points, it could be that you might not speak to people for a couple of days, maybe even longer. And if they're not working with a clear idea, a clear expectation, then you could lose quite a bit of time before you end up with finding out that you've gone off track.
Right. Okay. And I'm guessing that people will probably need to have that message repeated, won't they? So, not only because you're only touching base with them maybe once or a couple of times a week, but actually because there are so many more distractions likely when you are remote working as opposed to, being at your normal place of work.
Yeah, for sure. I think that without that clarity, people are going to generally do what they think is right.
Okay.
The challenge is that they end up doing things that could be off the pace, and therefore the more often you touch in, the more often you repeat the message, the more often that you touch base, check in, make sure A, they're okay, but also that they're clear about what they're working on, why it's important, and they're clear about what good looks like at the end of it, so that everybody can be clear about what is going to be delivered at the end of the process. And particularly with remote workers who can go, like we said, days on end without touching base.
Okay. So I've heard you before make reference to testing frequently. Now, presumably we're not talking about testing here in the broader sense of the term, like COVID, but what are we testing for?
Well, we're really looking to test the message that's getting through. And of course, that will differ depending on who you're talking to. So some people might need more regular touch-ins. Other people might be okay. But one thing's for sure is you need to ask the questions. What specifically are we working on? What makes this so important to you and to the organization? And get them to play that back to you so that you can validate your understanding and you're validating their understanding at the same time.
Okay. So I think there's a big element in this that this needs to be done individually, right? Because from a remote point of view, we have even less opportunity of talking to 2, 3, 4 people, a team necessarily at the same time. We're probably going to, I appreciate that we've got, online capability and video conferences, etc. But different individuals will probably have different expectations, and we may well need to, more than ever, manage individuals far more closely and far more individualistically, if that makes sense, because some people will be better at this than others.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is individually or individualistically, as you frame it, but individually. Yeah. I think closely is not necessarily going to be right for everybody. So, we just need to work out how individuals want to work with you,
right,
without being overbearing, without actually causing them to feel like they're being bookend managed.
Right.
I think that's a term you picked up recently, Rob,
Sure.
from one of your
I was speaking to somebody the other day who sort of said, well, your working day will now look like this. I'll call you at 9:15 in the morning. I'll call you at 10 to 5 in the afternoon. And if you don't feel like a bookend from that point of view, gosh, I don't know what does. So,
well, no, and of course, that for some people that might be okay because they get that sense of, I know I'm going to have 2 checkpoints during the day, and check not necessarily in terms of am I doing the right thing, am I even doing something, but checks as in it's my opportunity to share what I've been up to,
right.
Ask any questions. So some people might like the comfort of that, whereas others might feel that is overbearing.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's not just the structure of it; it's how it's handled. What that whole conversation is about.
Absolutely, and I think how is always going to be the key here. Is how you conduct the conversation. Are you being inquisitive, curious, or interrogational in terms of the way that you have that conversation? So, what have you been doing? Where are we up to? Let's turn it more into a conversation rather than necessarily a Spanish Inquisition where there's 20 questions. I think, ultimately what you're looking to test is clarity.
Right.
Do we understand what's important right now? Do we understand why that makes a difference for the organization in context of the goals that we're working to? And I think you're likely to have, as you described, Rob, earlier, you're likely to have more touch points, but not necessarily be too overbearing in the way that you do it.
So you could say that actually sharing clarity, being clear with people is not only a logical thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. It's a kind thing to do.
Yeah, I think Brené Brown, a professor, she wrote the book Dare to Lead, but she always describes that clear is kind, unclear is unkind.
Okay.
And when you actually think about it, if we don't know what's expected, how can we be confident we're going to get what we want? Right. How can we be confident that I'm doing the right thing and that that's going to deliver the right thing at the end of the day? And I quite like that phrase because it's just a real... It's a really clear reminder, clarity. It's a really clear reminder that, actually, if we're not being clear with our people, we are being unkind to them. Because if they don't know what's expected, how on earth can you be clear what you're going to get at the end of it?
Well, and I like your reference to the confidence piece because, and just to throw the words back at you, if we don't know what's expected, how can we be confident of what we will, that we'll get what we want? I think that confidence piece is even bigger than that, isn't it? Because actually during periods of change and, uncertainty, and we're currently in a huge one of those right now, it's going to be very important, and it has proven to be very important, that we are confident with each other. How confident am I of the work that I'm doing? Clarity. How confident am I of other people doing the things that either they need to do or that I'm expecting them to do? So I think confidence is a huge thing in this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think I want to be, if I'm reporting to you, for example, I want to be confident that I'm doing what you want me to do. And I'm doing it in the right way. So having those check-ins is a really good way to do that, but in a constructive check-in kind of way.
Right.
And I think as a manager, what I want, or a leader, I want the reassurance that our people are doing the right things at the right time, working in the right way.
Yes.
Yeah, and that you can sum that all up as confidence.
Right. So, and I'm putting words in your mouth, in your own mouth here, I'm guessing by this question, but it seems to me then that you can't over-communicate. There's no such thing as over-communicating?
No, I don't think there is. I think, if you take the government in the way that they're communicating right now, is even when there's little to say, they're telling us there's little to say.
Right.
And when there's lots to say, they add that information on, even though, that may cause more questions, which often communication does. Okay. The key is regular communication means we can address any uncertainty. We can address the communication gaps in people's mind. And as the questions come in, we can fill those gaps. So I don't think at any point, quote Brene Brown again, you're really looking that clarity is kind.
Right.
That's really what we're trying to do here. And the only way you can be sure is to test it. And that's where communication, as much as you possibly can, is never going to do you any harm.
And I guess to be completely aware that whenever there's another element of further change, if we've had to change our plan or there's a new situation or an additional situation that's causing more change, that may mean more testing. It's like, this is a sort of it's not something that's just going to stop. It's something that we have to keep an eye on and keep adjusting.
Absolutely. And I think testing is an interesting word because it's not just about you as the manager, as the leader testing. It's also encouraging your people to test that all the time too.
Right.
Can I just check we're doing the right thing? Can I just check we're working on this? Can I just check we're still working towards this date, towards this goal, so that actually you get a full rounded view of the world by encouraging your people to be testing as well as you.
Okay.
Because otherwise it will feel a little bit inquisitive and maybe interrogational, whereas actually if you can encourage them to be in a position where they're comfortable testing as well, then actually you'll get to the right outcome more often than not.
Okay. No, that's really interesting, Ricky. So just to sort of summarize what we've just had a chat about, the question is what makes clarity so important when managing remotely? And what we've talked through is the importance of clarity for both us and for our people, and a really good piece of advice to test frequently so we can learn what's right. So thanks, Ricky.
Thanks, Rob.
Next time on The Question Is.
One of the things that you see coming out of people who are struggling with uncertainty is anxiety. And so you see sort of typical trends in business and workplaces, things like micromanaging, trying to take control of more stuff, double-checking things. So double-checking things like the work, but also double-checking people.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com. where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.